Hello, everyone. My name is Ricardo Ibáñez, and welcome to Ricardo's Time. Ricardo's Time is a video podcast about objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Ricardo's Time gives you examples of real-life situations. It provides specific, practical life situations where objectivist ideas are implemented so that you can integrate them in your lives. So why this matters? It brings you guidance on how to enjoy your life to the fullest, maximizing your happiness and being the best version of yourself. In case you are already an objectivist student, Ricardo's Time also teaches you to communicate objectivist idea effectively and persuasively. And today we have a great guest. His name is Biddle. He's a co-founder and editor of the Objective Standard, co-founder and director of education at the Objective Standard Institute, executive director at Prometheus Foundation, and host of the podcast Excluding the Middle, which is coming soon. Welcome, Craig. Thanks for being with us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I would like to start by, if you could tell us briefly about your story, what you used to do in your beginnings, and then how your life transformed until you met objectivism.
Sure. So my first career was actually in furniture design. I was not academically inclined as a high school student or even a college student. I was am dyslexic, so reading is difficult, and I read very slowly. So I avoided all of that. Wow. Went into fine art, majored in furniture design, and my first career was doing just that, designing and building furniture. I discovered Ayn Rand when I was 29, going on 30, and her ideas were so powerful, not only in terms of their application in life, but her ability to communicate was also very impressive to me. And I wanted not only to employ these ideas in my own life, but also to help advance them and teach other people about them. So I switched careers in my 30s and went in the direction of the work I'm doing now, initially writing a book titled Loving Life, The Morality of Self-Interest and the Facts That Support It. And that was my first sort of intellectual contribution to these ideas and to advancing them. And since then, I've started and run the Objective Standard, which is a journal of philosophy and culture and politics, written from the perspective of objectivism. And I've also recently, about a year ago, started Objective Standard Institute, which you mentioned. My wife and I started that as an educational nonprofit to run conferences and teach courses on these ideas and advance them that way. So that's my short story.
Amazing. It sounds really good. I mean, it's amazing because I've never heard like such a big change in one's life. I think it's you have contributed a lot to the intellectual movement, and thanks for that. So now I know you have some religious background, yeah, like your parents used to or are religious, and I think many people feel the same way. In my case, my parents are religious as well. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. The topic is going to be about rational self-interest, but focus in people who used to be religious or have some religious background or are just getting out of there, because mostly our audience is from Latin America, and many of them want to see how it's real life situations where rational self-interest applies to them, and contrasted to what they used to do maybe when they were religious or when they were practicing religion. So I would like to know, in your case, how your life changed, what you used to do before when you were religious, and after knowing this philosophy, how it changed, how it impacted your life.
Sure. Well, I really never took religion seriously, even as a child. It never made any sense to me, so I didn't take it seriously. But nor did I reject it until I was in my teens, and even then, I didn't reject it, with any kind of fervor. I just was like, this isn't for me. I'm not going to have anything to do with it. My father is an Episcopal minister. He's still alive, going on 90, and a wonderful man. He frankly, I don't know if he'd like this way of putting it, but I don't think he ever took religion too seriously either, in the sense that what does it mean to really accept the idea that there's a God and that faith, acceptance of ideas without any evidence to support those ideas, that's what faith is. What does it mean to take that seriously? Well, very few people really take that seriously, because everyone knows on some level that your means of knowledge is not just acceptance of ideas for no reason, right? Your means of knowledge is reason. It's your reasoning mind. It's your ability to perceive the world using your five senses and to integrate what you perceive into concepts like, dog, cat, house, sarcasm, justice, etc. Right? And these are the concepts that we use to think about what is the nature of the world we live in, what is our nature, and how to live successfully in this world. And so we use reason, whether we do it self-consciously or just sort of subconsciously. We're using this faculty all the time as our means of knowledge. It's how scientists gain knowledge. It's how engineers apply knowledge, and so on. And everyone knows on some level that the idea of just accepting ideas because you have faith in them is not really a means of knowledge. And so when I was a kid, I just didn't really accept that idea. I didn't, nor did I have in my mind, oh, reason is my means of knowledge. But I certainly wasn't just going to accept things because some other people said they were true. And I don't think really my father took religion all that seriously in that regard. Most people, I think, embrace religion for some of the perceived values that they think they're getting out of it. There's camaraderie, there's getting together on Sundays or whenever you gather for your religious ceremonies with other people. There's thinking seriously about purpose and what's right and wrong in life, and listening to beautiful music and this kind of thing. And these are genuine values, all of those things, but you don't need God or faith to enjoy those values. In fact, accepting ideas on the basis of faith or believing in the existence of some God for whom there's no evidence is actually contrary to those values. Where does purpose come from in human life? What is the purpose of your life? Well, it's whatever you decide to make of your life. Your purposes follow from the goals that you set for yourself. If you want to live a wonderful, happy life on earth with great friendships and a wonderful career and recreational activities that you enjoy, those then become your purposes, or your means of achieving those goals become your purposes. You're going to go through a certain process to make those things happen. And this is what the concept of purpose legitimately means in life. And then what faculty do you need to use to figure out what causal steps you need to take, what actions you need to take in order to achieve these kinds of goals? You need to use your rational faculty. If you just close your eyes and hope that something is going to come in there to give you guidance, it's not going to happen. And we all know that because you can just introspect and try it. Close your eyes and wish for guidance about how to live your life. It just doesn't happen. So we have to think. And this is why the rational part of rational egoism is there. Rational means go by reason, go by your reasoning mind. And egoism means do the things, figure out the things, and then do the things that will actually make your life wonderful here on earth in the one and only life that you have. So as I became more philosophically inclined and started studying philosophy in my late 20s, unfortunately, I sort of wasn't very philosophical during my early career as a furniture designer, but I enjoyed the work I was doing. I had set purposes for myself, and I was using reason to achieve those purposes. I just wasn't thinking about those things very philosophically. When I realized what was actually going on, oh, here's how people actually live. They use reason, they pursue goals, that gives them purpose in life, that gives their life meaning. That's about the time that I started to study Ayn Rand's philosophy and see that she had this whole philosophic system worked out around this kind of idea. And once you get your head around that, and you look back at things like any acceptance of religion or faith as a means of knowledge, they just don't make any sense. And they're of no use in your life. They really are of no use. So my evolution was just a process of having never really taken religion seriously, trying to live my life the best that I could and failing at a lot of things and succeeding at some things and being sort of kind of happy, but not super thrilled, to eventually figuring out that there's a system for looking at life scientifically and looking at life in terms of causal connections. You have to do this if you want to achieve that. And Ayn Rand's system gave me a whole new way of looking at life and of succeeding in life. And because of that, and because of the successes that I achieved through her philosophy, I really wanted to advance these ideas. So the issue of faith and the issue of religion, for those who are still hanging on to those ideas, you can't get rid of that stuff right away. You can't just go, oh, I'm going to eliminate from my subconscious all the stuff that my parents and preachers and teachers taught me about religion. But what you can do right away is you can start asking yourself, does that stuff make sense? Does it really provide you guidance for living on earth and achieving your values and living a wonderful life? Or are there elements within religion, not only the idea that faith is a means of knowledge, but how about the idea that being moral consists in giving up your values, sacrificing your values and your goals and your happiness to serve other people, right? That's sort of the religious ethics. That's the essence of the religious ethics. And that doesn't work to make your life great. That actually does the opposite. It will, if you give up the values on which your happiness depends, right? A fun career, wonderful relationships, recreational activities that fill your life with joy. If you give those things up in some way, rather than pursuing them, really consistently, you're going to live a less than happy life. And religion, unfortunately, is just, it just hampers people's lives this way. And so I urge people to question religion and question the validity of it, and then look at new alternatives like Ayn Rand's philosophy and compare them and see which of these sets of ideas make sense given what you want to do in life and the facts of reality.
Excellent explanation. So while I was listening, it came to my mind, have you ever known people, for example, that had sacrificed their career because they wanted to go to religion, have that experience, close experience?
You mean people who have sacrificed their career specifically to go into a religious profession?
For example, yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, pretty much everyone who's gone into a religious profession has done that. Religion, whether I'm talking about the monotheistic religions, the three major religions, so Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Okay.
All of these religions ask you, or not ask, they demand of you that you accept ideas on faith, so accept ideas for which there's no evidence. And right there, as soon as you start doing that, what have you done? You've capitulated, you've given up your reasoning mind to accept ideas just because some other people said they were true, whether it's written in the Bible or whether your preacher told you that from the pulpit or whatever. You're just accepting these ideas now because somebody said that they were true. Well, that's giving up your independent judgment. That's giving up your very means of understanding this world and succeeding in this world, your connection, the connection between your mind and the facts of reality. That completely undermines your ability to succeed. So people who go into the profession of religion, whether they know it or not, and whether they like to hear this or not, is irrelevant. They are giving up on a fundamental level their basic means of succeeding in this world. So that's the first thing. Then they're throwing all of their time into a career that is not creating the values on which human life depends, but rather promulgating the negative values, the values that are bad for human life. Give up your mind, sacrifice for others, renounce happiness on earth, all the things that these religions tell you to do. You're giving up the very things that are necessary for happiness and success on earth. So yeah, I mean, the whole lot of people who go into religion as a career are harming themselves, and they're harming others to the extent that they promulgate these ideas that are contrary to the requirements of life. Then there are the people, and maybe you were wanting to get at this too, you tell me, but then there are the people who don't necessarily go into religion professionally. Maybe they go into gardening or construction or engineering or law. And they nevertheless, though, hang on to this stuff that they were told when they were a kid. You know, you should sacrifice. That's what being moral is. God's looking down on you at all the time. And if you don't do what he says you should do, you're a bad person and all that stuff. And that hampers their life too. That really throttles their ability to think and pursue values and live. So any extent to which you accept these ideas of religion, they undercut your ability to live a beautiful and happy life.
Excellent. Yes, I can give you also my personal example because I used to be Catholic. I was raised Catholic. My parents are Catholic. I used to try to be a believer because I thought that it was morally right to make my parents happy, for instance, and they wanted me to believe in God. So I say, okay, I believe in God just to make them see them happy. So I sacrificed my independent judgment in this case, but also at the same time, I didn't really believe in God. I just said it because I thought it was a way, they wouldn't put pressure on me. So I think many people feel, for example, in Latin America in general, there is so much Catholic influence that everyone is always saying, oh, you should believe in someone, you should believe in something. And that's how my experience.
On that note, there's an interesting, Ayn Rand makes the point that religion teaches children to lie before they even know what honesty is. Right. And if you think about it, that's what happened to you. It happened to me, too. I think it almost happens to every child who's brought up in a religious family, because if your parents are saying, do you believe in God? And you answer yes. Well, what does that mean? Do you actually have a basis for belief in God? Did you see him? Did you hear him? Did you engage in some process with him? Or are you just saying yes because somebody's pressuring you to say yes? That's what's really going on, is the latter. You're just saying yes because you're pressured by adults to say yes. And to any extent that somebody does that, what he or she is doing is literally lying before you even understand the consequences of dishonesty, of disconnecting your mind from reality. So it's a really, really pernicious thing, religion. And look, I understand why people, get into it when they're young, because their parents and teachers and preachers pressure them to do so. But the fact is, we have free will. And what we can always do at any point in our lives is we can ask ourselves, does this make sense to me? Am I being honest about what I think about this thing? Is this really good for my life? Let me look at reality and see, right? Versus saying, oh, forget doing all that hard thinking, forget looking at reality. I'm just going to keep going with whatever the adults have told me is true, or whatever my preacher told me is true. I'm just going to accept that and do my best to live on the basis of that, of that information. That's giving up your mind. That is giving up your mind, and it's giving up your life to do that. So this is a really important thing for people to face and make rational decisions about. Either you're going to focus on reality and be true to yourself and ask yourself, do I accept faith as a means of knowledge? That means just accepting any idea. By the way, if you think about it, if faith is a means of knowledge, then all you have to do to know something is just say, I believe it. Well, then the 9/11 hijackers were right to fly those airplanes into our skyscrapers. Why? They had faith that they should do that. If faith is a means of knowledge, then faith is a means of knowledge. They knew that they should do that. It was right that they should do that. They knew that because they had faith. You see the danger of accepting faith as a means of knowledge. Or if you say, well, I have faith that I should sacrifice my values for other people. Okay, what happens to your life when you do that consistently throughout your life? When you give up the values that would make your life great, and instead of pursuing your values, you give up those values and you serve others self-sacrificially. Two things happen. Your life, many things happen, but two of the most important things that happen is your life goes like this instead of going like that, right? It goes down the tube. And the people you're sacrificing for, they don't have the incentive then, the example that you might have set if you had actually pursued values and done the thinking. They don't have the examples, and they don't have the incentive to say, oh, that's how you live your life. You use your mind, you work hard, you engage with people, rationally and voluntarily with each other so that you can live wonderful lives together, right? Rational egoism, using your mind and pursuing your values, is all about win-win relationships, at least when it comes to how you deal with other people. They don't need your sacrifice. You don't need their sacrifice. What do you both need to do? You need to think, produce, trade, enjoy the values that you produce. Let's say you produce movies, and let's say I produce gardening tools. Well, great. You have a career doing that thing. I have a career doing this thing. When I need to watch movies, I can watch them because you make them, and I give you money for that. When you need gardening tools, you come to my shop and get your gardening tools, right? That's a trade. And this happens on every level in human life, not just the material, not just things like, physical rakes and things like that, but also spiritual values, right? Admiration, friendship, self-esteem, the kinds of personal, internal spiritual values that are just very, very personal. Your purposes in life, these are spiritual values. So there's nothing about this approach that's getting rid of spirituality. All of these values that are values of the mind are spiritual values: reason, self-esteem, purpose, friendship, the appreciation that you get from and the enjoyment you get from art. These are all very, very important spiritual values. And when you're getting them from other people in some way, you're engaged in a spiritual trade. So the whole thing is win-win. Everyone who involves himself or herself in the process of thinking, engaging with each other on rational basis, voluntary exchange and the like, everyone who chooses to engage in that wins, and no one loses ultimately. That doesn't mean you're not going to lose a job application. Somebody else might get a job that you also applied for. So it doesn't mean that you'll never, have a disappointment in life. What it means is that if you continually use your mind and pursue your values, you will find ways to succeed in life and to achieve your values. And, there's always some ups and downs in life, but if you're constantly rational, the trajectory goes like this, right? It goes up. There's dips. It's like a stock market going up, right? There are dips and you climb and you drop every once in a while. But if you live your life rationally, you're going to succeed. This is setting aside, calamities like, an earthquake or cancer or whatever. But generally speaking, if you live that way, you're going to succeed. So we just don't need any of this religious malarkey. We don't need faith. We don't need the idea of God. To pretend that you agree with any of that stuff when you really don't is to give up your mind, which is your basic means of succeeding and understanding and enjoying life. I urge your readers or your listeners, if you've got a lot of sort of religious listeners, and I know in the Spanish-speaking world, there are a lot of people who are Catholic. The Catholic religion is very prominent there. And you just have to ask yourself, does this stuff really make sense? And activate your mind and think about other possibilities, right? Look into Ayn Rand's philosophy. Read up on what she has said about these ideas. And don't accept those on faith either. Like Ayn Rand would be the first person to tell you, do not accept my ideas unless they make sense to you and you can understand the facts that give rise to and support these ideas. She's asking you to go by evidence, not by faith, right? But so whatever philosophy you look into, it's your mind that you need to use, and you need to focus it on reality and ask yourself very honestly, what do I think about this? And if you do that, you can live just a wonderful, wonderful life.
Perfect. Just a couple of more themes, which is basically, okay, now some people that are already getting out of religion or who are already objectivist students and they have parents who are religious, what should be the relationship? Because many think that since both of them have opposite ways of thinking, the relation is going to be much harder. What's your experience and how should one treat with one's parents?
Yeah, so when your parents are religious and you are wanting to, look at other options, and whether reason maybe should be the thing you go by rather than faith, as I was just talking about, no doubt your parents are going to push back, and they may even be upset that you're going in this direction. But what I think you should do in those cases is say, listen, mom and dad, I have a mind, and I've decided that my mind is my means of understanding this world, and I'm going to go by evidence. And if there's no evidence, I'm not going to accept ideas that are put forth on the basis of no evidence, right? I'm just not going to accept these religious ideas because they don't make sense to me. And I can't imagine that you would really want me to give up my mind. I can't imagine you would really want me to say, oh, my mind is useless. I'm just going to go with whatever my parents or preachers or teachers told me. And if you say that to them, my guess is they will sort of step back a little bit and say, wow, he's got a point there. I should not expect him to give up his mind. And I think you can have a reasonably good relationship with parents who remain religious, even when you decide that you're not going to accept faith as a means of knowledge anymore. And that's really what the basis of religion is. It's the whole business operates around, is faith a means of knowledge or not? That's the fundamental issue in religion. Can you get knowledge by just accepting ideas? Or do you have to use your reasoning mind to figure out what's true? That's the issue. And if you tell your parents that you see the issue as this way, and that there's a lot of people who are telling me I should believe in God, the preacher tells me that, the priest tells me that, whoever, you're telling me that, but I don't see that as making any sense. So I'm not going to do it. And I ask you to respect my decision for my life. And although I think you're wrong in making your decision to stay with religion, I'm not going to harangue you about it. I'm just going to tell you that now. And I encourage you, if you ever want to look into the rational philosophy that I'm investigating now, let me know, and I'll give you some guidance about where you might start and what books you might read. I'm finding it really helpful, which I'm sure you will, by the way, if you look into these ideas. So if you do find them helpful, you can tell your parents that and say, since I started embracing these ideas, I've seen a whole new light in my life. Things are getting better. I'm living a much happier life. I feel positive about myself. I don't feel guilty for not living up to Jesus on the cross or Mother Teresa, washing feet in the gutters of Calcutta or whatever. And you say, I see this as a better way to live, as not only a better way to live, but as the right way to live. So I'm going to do it. And I encourage you to join me. So whatever, I'm just riffing now on the kinds of things that you can say. This is just all off the top of my head. But the gist of it is this: ask them to respect your mind, your judgment, and your decision. And tell them that even though you disagree with them, just as they may disagree with you, you're not going to harangue them about it. And we can just agree to disagree on this, and you go your way and I'll go mine, and we'll talk and get together as long as we can keep things peaceful.
Amazing.
If, however, let me just add one more thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If your parents rail against you completely and they just disown you because you've decided to go by your own judgment, that is an unfortunate situation, but it is their choice, not yours. It's their choice to be irrational, not yours. You're trying to be rational. They're insisting on remaining irrational. And if they do that, you just have to say, look, I can't deal with you on these terms, so I'm going to step away. And if you change your mind down the line and decide to respect my judgment and my decision to go by reason, you let me know, and I'll leave the door open to amend our relationship. And then you go out and live,
That's good.
Then discover people like Ricardo and me and other people who live by these ideas and engage with them. Make your own family of people whose values and ideas and commitment to reason integrates with yours. Don't try to establish and maintain relationships with people who are toxic for your life. And this includes family. You should have your life.
That's a great point. So yes, in my case, Ayn Rand's moral code enabled me, the rational self-interest, to live a happier life than the altruistic moral code of Catholicism, for instance. Following my rational self-interest enabled me to enjoy life to the fullest. Finally, the partner relationship, when you have, in your case, right, a wife, that's totally different than a parent's relationship, of course, because in a partner, you look for the values that represent what you want to see or what you admire, right? So you should, if you are not getting out of this religious stuff, or you already are an objectivist student who knows or you respect Ayn Rand ideas, then you should look maybe for someone who thinks at least from those basic principles like you, because if not, you're going to go at home, and if your wife just contradicts everything you say, it's not going to be a very healthy relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, so here's my advice on relationships. First of all, you do not need to find someone who agrees with you on everything, right? That's just not going to happen. And you don't even need to find somebody who is, has the same philosophy as you. So an objectivist might think to himself, well, I've got to go find somebody who's also an objectivist. If you do that, that's a very small pool you're going to be looking into, but you don't need to find someone who's an objectivist. What you need to find is someone who is active-minded, someone who is willing to think. And that's not enough either. They have to be willing to think, and then you have to actually enjoy your time with them. They have to have good character. They have to enjoy some of the same kinds of values that you do. I think very frequently people who enjoy the same kind of art, whether movies or books or paintings or sculptures or music or whatever, people who enjoy the same kind of art tend to have what Ayn Rand called a similar sense of life. And that's a very important aspect of a romantic relationship, also an important aspect of friendships. So what I think you want to look for is not someone who has the exact same philosophy necessarily, but someone who is active-minded, willing to think, and someone whose values, particularly in the realm of like art and humor, coincide with yours. If you find people in that zone, you're much more likely to find someone who's very compatible with you for a relationship. And one way you can find those kinds of people is to go engage out in the world in the kinds of activities that you love to do. If you love mountain climbing, join a mountain climbing club. If you love cooking, join a cooking group or whatever. If you love reading novels, join a reading club, right? If you love dancing, go take dance lessons or whatever. But join activities where other people are engaged who also will like that same activity. And there you will likely find people who have a similar sense of life to yours. And once you find that, then you can start just, investigating, asking people out on dates or lunch, or, if you're just looking for friendship, you might, find let's say you join a basketball get together every Saturday down the way, and people get together every Saturday and play basketball there, and you love playing basketball. Well, if you go do that, you're going to meet friends who love to play basketball. And by and large, some of those people are probably also going to be rational people who are open to ideas. And that's where you can start to build genuine reason-based relationships.
Amazing. It was great. Thank you so much, Greg, for being with us today. We show you with real life examples the meaning of morality of rational self-interest and how to use it to improve your lives. We focus on people who are in religious environment and also or who are just getting out of there. And I think this was very illuminating for them in order to make better decisions and maybe to learn more also about objectivism or keep their way as an objectivist student. Thanks, Greg, for being with us. Don't forget
to say a couple more words just in closing? Absolutely. So let me encourage, you've sort of done this already, but let me further encourage people to read some of Ayn Rand's work. So if you love fiction, if you like reading fiction, read The Fountainhead, read Atlas Shrugged, read her novels. They're just wonderful. If you're more inclined to read nonfiction and you want to just sort of get into what is the ethics about or what is Ayn Rand's view on politics or the like, you can read The Virtue of Selfishness, her book, which focuses primarily on her ethics. You can read Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, which is a book focusing on the moral basis of capitalism and how capitalism works and why it's really the only moral social system. You can read her book, Philosophy, Who Needs It, which is sort of a an overview, a series of essays that gives you an overview about why philosophy is important and what the aspects of philosophy are that you should think about. But none of her books will tell you this is what you must believe. Instead, all of her books say, hey, if you want to live a beautiful life, think about it this way and see what you think, right? That's sort of that's the objective approach. It's not dogmatizing or telling people you have to accept these ideas. It's showing them ideas that they can see if they use their mind and look for evidence, that they can see the truth of these ideas, and then they can use them to make their life great. So look into Ayn Rand's books, read her books. And then the second thing I'd like to say is Objective Standard Institute, which is objectivestandard.org, that's the website, is a nonprofit educational organization that my wife and I run. And you can come there and take courses on these ideas and how to apply them in your life and how to make your life beautiful. That's what we teach people to do. And it's a really wonderful, fun environment. And if you can't afford the courses, we have scholarship programs that you can apply for a scholarship through and possibly take the courses completely for free. Now, these are online courses, and then we also have live conferences. But go check out objectivestandard.org in addition to Ayn Rand's books, and think for yourself about this stuff. Maybe you'll get there and you'll say, oh, I don't think this is true. This is not for me. Fine. But you might also get there and go, holy smoke, this is a life changer. Now I can really engage my mind in trying to live a beautiful life and then do just that. So take a look.
Absolutely. Yeah. I took some courses there. It's amazing. I recommend it. Also, I think I agree that the best examples are in Ayn Rand books, how her philosophy works in practice, like Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead. But I think there are also good examples in your book, right? Rational Egoism, The Morality for Human Flourishing, right, Craig?
Well, thank you. Yes, I think my books are good too. So there's Rational Egoism is one of my books. The other one is Loving Life. And yeah, they're very highly concretized introductions to these ideas. And they're very helpful as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Craig, for your time. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Take care.
You too.